The upscale deco strategy seemed like a perfectly good idea until I observed women walking for lunch. Oh, I read this one yesterday, right? We read together, so try to read next part. They compare our food with the top restaurants in San Francisco and decide it was sufficiently special. We fail to predict how customers will compare us. This book itself presents a especially challenging comparison problem. If I add too much humor to this book, reviewers and readers will compare it with other humor books, and it will come up short because it is many of chapters don't lend themselves to jokes. Okay, I've spent a lot of time describing just one psychological phenomenon, the tendency to make irrational comparisons. But how many psychological tips and traits does a person really need to understand in order to be successful in life? My best guess is that there are a few hundred rules in psychology that you should have passing familiarity with. I've been observing impersonation in this field for decades. Oh, and I don't feel that I'm getting anywhere near the end of it. And just about everything I learn about human psychology ends up being helpful. I went to Wikipedia to get a quick list of psychological and cognitive traps that humans often fall into. Psychology is an immersive field and well beyond the scope of this book. My point is to impress upon you how many useful nuggets of information are at the disposal, and most of them are free. Every psychological trap on this list can be used to manipulate you. If there's something on this list that you are not familiar with, you are vulnerable to deception. In some cases, you are missing opportunities to make your product or yourself more attractive to others. It's a good idea to make psychology your lifelong study. Most of what you need to know as a regular citizen can be gleaned from the internet. Below is Wikipedia's list of cognitive biases. It looks like a lot to know, but you have your entire life to acquire the knowledge. Think of it as a system in which you learn a bit every year. That will be easier if you understand how important psychology is to everything you want to accomplish in life. On a scale of 1 to 10, the importance of understanding psychology is a solid 10. Oh, okay. Some of things on the list are common sense, and you might know them by other names. I included a comprehensive list just to give you a feel for how deep the field is. And I would go so far as to say that anything on the list that you don't understand might cost you money in the future. You've heard the odd saying that knowledge is power, but knowledge of psychology is the purest form of that power. No matter what you are doing or how well you are doing it, you can benefit from a deeper understanding of how the mind interprets its world, using only the clues that somehow find a way into your brain through the holes in your skull. I thought it would be fascinating and maybe useful. I even considered making some money on the side as a hypnosist. I decided against it because I didn't want to be in the business of selling my time. But the skills and insights I gleaned from studying hypnosis have improved my performance in just about everything I've done since then, from business to my personal life. It was time well spent. In hypnosis, you don't spend a lot of time asking why one technique works and why another does not. Hypnosis is largely trial and error process. They use your own experience plus that of a hypnotist who have gone before to reduce the number of wrong moves. In that sense, hypnosis treats people as if they were machines. They can be programmed. If you provide the right impulse, you get the outputs you want. Hypnosis is an exact process because every brain has a different mix of chemistry. For example, if I ask you to relax and imagine forest in the summer, most of you would find that a pleasing image. But people who are afraid of bears or afraid of getting lost might get agitated by the thought of the forest. A hypnotist learns to detect the slight changes in breathing, posture, movement, and skin tone to know if the images presented are working as planned. Adjustments are made accordingly. In the simplest terms, a hypnotist tries to do more of the whatever works and less of what doesn't. My experience with hypnosis completely changed the way I view people and how I interpret choices they make. I no longer see reasons that the driver of behavior. I see simple cause and effect, similar to the way the machines operate. If you believe people use reason for the important decisions in life, you will go through the life feeling confused. Okay. And frustrated. Okay, then others seem to have better reasoning skills. The reality is that reason is just one of the drivers of our decisions, and often the smallest one. Yes, it's reason, right? Okay, predictably everything we learn about the car at the point seemed either good or good enough. We convinced ourselves that the price was reasonable. We convinced ourselves that the features were just what we wanted. And eventually, we convinced ourselves that we had negotiated a good deal. The normal way people would look at our car buying experience is that we saw a model that looked good enough to interest us. Then we did research and applied our reasoning and came to a rational decision. The reality is quite different. The amateur hypnotist in me knows that our visceral reaction to the car was beginning and the end of the thinking that went into the purchase. Okay. Our perceived reason did some due diligence. Due diligence, right? Do you know the due diligence? Okay. Where is it? 배가 고파요. I'm hungry. I have no energy to breathe. But it's almost done. Okay, I can do it. We're here. Our parts of reason did some due diligence to make sure it met our basic requirements, but we already knew it would. The purchase was an irrational decision that tried and failed to sell itself to me as the product of reason. It is tremendously useful to know when people are using reason and when they are rationalizing the irrational. You are wasting your time if you try to make a submissive reason when someone is not influencing the decision. If you ever have frustrating political debates with your friend who refuses to see the logic in your argument, you know what I mean. But keep in mind that the friend sees you exactly the same way. When politicians tell lies, they know the press will call them out. They also know it doesn't matter. Politicians understand that reason will never have much of a role in voting decisions. A lie that makes a voter feel good is more effective than 100 rational arguments. That's even true when the voter knows the lie is a lie. If you're perplexed at how society can tolerate politicians who lie so bluntly, you are thinking of people as rational beings. Their worldview is frustrating and limiting. People who study hypnosis start to view humans as most machines that are simply responding to inputs with programmed outputs. No reasoning is involved beyond eliminating the most absurd options. Your reasoning can prevent you from pre-voting for the total imbecile, but it won't stop you from supporting a happy wig with a great haircut. If you build of the world that people use a reason for their important decisions, you are setting yourself up for a life of frustration and confusion. You will find yourself continually debating people and never winning is set in your own mind. Few things are destructive and limiting as a worldview that assumes people are mostly rational. Apple owns much of its success in Steve Jobs' understanding that the way the product makes users feel triumphs most other considerations, including price. If Steve Jobs had seen people as rational beings, he might have followed a path similar to the selling highly capable machines at the lowest possible price. They succeeded too, of course, but if buyers were rational. Luckily for Dell and several other Windows computer manufacturers, there are enough irrational people with the poor information to keep several companies afloat. So as long as their products are confusing similar, Jobs' worldview led him to the business model with the high margins, whereas Windows computers have become commodities. If you feel I'm overstating the case that people are irrational, allow me to put some boundaries on that idea. People certainly make the small decisions based on the rational considerations. You probably invest your money in ways that are prudent, or so you think. But keep in mind that the financial meltdown of 2009 happened because even the best minds of finance were irrational, optimistic about financial instruments they couldn't hope to understand. Rational behavior is especially useless in a situation that is too complex for human grasp. Cell phone companies exploit it. The fact that open price plans are too complicated to compare with their competition. I coined the word confusedly to describe the strategy. The intent is to prevent customers from using whatever small reasoning power they possess to compare prices and features. Instead, consumers make largely uninformed decisions and convince themselves that they did well. I don't think you need to become a hypnotist to understand human psychology, although it helps. But I do think a working knowledge of psychology is essential to your success, both personally and professionally. Consider it a lifelong learning process, 맞아요. You'll be glad you did. Oh, thank you. Over time, it starts to feel like a superpower that allows you to understand things that are confused and confound those around you. Business writing. I did notice that some people in the business world wrote with an impressive level of clarity, and persuasiveness. But I figured that was just because those people were extra smart. It never occurred to me that there wasn't something technical involved, and that we unwashed and crude citizens could easily learn it. I was very wrong about how useful the class would be. I didn't have high hopes that the class would change my life. I was just looking for some tips and tricks for better writing. If I recall, the class was only 2 afternoons long, and it was life-altering. As it turns out, business writing is all about getting to the point and leaving out all of the noise. You think you already do that in your writing, but you probably don't. Consider the previous sentence. I intentionally omitted some noise. Did you catch it? The sentence that starts with you think already do it and close an unnecessary word already. Remove it and you get exactly the same meaning. You think you do that. The already part is assumed and unnecessary. That sort of the rationalization is the foundation of business writing. Business writing also teaches the brains and wire to better understand concepts that are presented in a certain order. Eventually, I learned that the so-called persuasive writers were doing little more than using ordinary business writing models. Clean writing makes a writer seem smarter, and it makes them write arguments and more persuasive. Business writing is also foundation for humor writing. Unnecessary words and passive writing kill the timing of the humor the same way they kill the persuasiveness of your point. According is a part of the voluntary of business, and if you don't understand it on the concept level, the world will be a confusing place. Okay? 또 아이디어가 생각났어요. Design. In today's world, we're all designers, so whether we like it or not. You might be designing PowerPoint presentations, or a website for your startup, or a flyer for your kids' school event. You're also flourishing your home, buying clothes you hope look nice to others, and so on. Design uses an exclusive domain of artists and other experts. Now we are all expected to have the working understanding of design. All the numbers just look better in the context. A PowerPoint slide should contain a few basic templates. The most common is the L-shaped layout. You can change it up by rotating L and leaving different quadrants less busy than the rest. But it's still the L concept. Learn just in a few design tricks and people would think you're smarter without knowing exactly why. Few people are skilled conversationalists. Few people are skilled conversationalists. Most people are just talking, which is not the same thing. The difference is the skilled conversationalists have learned techniques that are surprisingly non-obvious to a lot of people. I was among the clueless about conversation skills for the first half of my life. There are probably a dozen or more reasons to have conversation, depending on how you slice it. You must start a conversation to exchange information, plan, complain, entertain, feel connected, befriend, seduce, persuade, be polite, avoid awkward silence, brag. A bad conversationist will focus on impoverished part of the list, doing a lot of bragging, complaining, exchanging information. It's fair to say that such a person doesn't understand what conversation is or how to do it. 야, 이게 이제 발음이 이제 조금 발음 그리고 이 조금 돌아오기 시작하죠. 예전에. Okay. I thought into category for the first few decades of my life. My first inkling the conversation was in a learnable skill, and that the benefits of conversation were larger than I imagined. Happened while I was taking a Dale Carnegie course I mentioned earlier. The focus of the class wasn't public speaking, but we also learned techniques for making conversation with strangers, such as one might in a party or business situation. The techniques laughably simple and 100% effective. All you do is introduce yourself and ask questions until you find a point of the mutual interest. I'll paraphrase of the Dale Carnegie question stack, as best I remember it. It goes something like this. 1. What's your name? 2. What do you live? 3. Do you have a family? 4. What do you do for a living? 5. Do you have any hobbies or sports? 6. Do you have any travel plans? If you like me, The question is a bit awkward for the person or for someone you just met. 그러니까요. I don't think that question is real good. While most people enjoy humor, the typical person doesn't go directly there before getting to know someone. The person you meet will feel every bit as awkward as you. The person wants you to talk about something interesting and sound knowledgeable. I would go so far as to say that 99% of the general public love talking about themselves. When you ask a stranger a personal question, you make the person happy. I don't think, no, if I just see someone ask me the personal question, it feels so awkward, and then I really want to avoid that situation. So he's almost 85, I think. That's why in kind of generation culture gap. I don't think it's a good idea. Yeah, it's just kind of old-fashioned. When you ask a stranger a person question and you make the person happy, your question releases any stress and awkward silence and gets your conversation moving. No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Best of all, it signals that you have interest in a stranger, which most people interpret as friendliness and social confidence. Even if you're faking it, your faking social confidence leads to the real thing over time. Everyone is interesting if you make a situation feel safe. There's somewhat of a good conversation technique. Ask questions, don't complain. Don't take about the boring experiences. Don't dominate the conversation, let others talk. Don't get stuck on a topic, keep moving. Planning is useful, but it isn't conversation. Keep the sad stories short, especially medical stories. The point of conversation is to make the other person feel good. If you do that, one simple thing correctly, the other benefits will come along with the deal. For example, a person who likes you is more likely to be persuaded to recommend you for good opportunities to share information and to want a relationship with you. And if you must complain because it's just too hard to keep it, you're better off comparing to someone who already likes you. That way you will get the empathy you want. So how do you get a stranger to like you? It's just simple. It starts by smiling and keeping your body language open. After that, just ask questions and listening as if you cared, all of while looking for the common interest. Everyone likes to talk about his or her own life, and everyone appreciates a sympathetic listener. Eventually, if you discover some common interest, you will feel a connection without any effort. If you're physically attractive, it probably isn't a good idea to talk too much. People are predisposed to liking attractive people. Talking can only make the thing worse. If you're attractive, be sure you are creating a solid connection before discussing your hobby of collecting baby animal skulls or whatever the hell you're into. The less you say, the better. At least in the early stages of getting to know someone. It might be all you have to sell yourself unless you are accomplished in some world-class way. You will need to take your conversation skills up notch, and that means becoming the master of the short but interesting stories. As a writer, I reflexively translate whatever I observe into the story form with a setup, a twist if there is one, and some sort of punchline or a thought that ties it in a bow. You can do the same thing. Try to get in the habit of asking yourself how you can turn your interesting experiences into story form. I find it helps to imagine telling the story to someone in particular, a spouse, a friend, or a relative. Try a few versions in your head, telling the story and telling how it goes. Was it brief? Did you save the surprise for just the right moment? Did you have a way to end up the story with a punchline or interesting observation? It's a good idea always to have a backlog of stories you can pull out at the moments of notice, and you will want to continually update your internal story database with new material. The most popular type of stories is funny stories. For me, no. I don't like someone who just talk about the funny story. I don't. Yeah. I think everyone should learn how to tell the funny story. I don't think people realize that storytelling is a learnable skill and another a genetic gift. Once you know the parts that compose any good story, you have all you need to sculpt your own out of your everyday experiences. The most important key to good storytelling is preparation. You don't want to figure out your story as you tell it. If someone's story worth and happens to you, spend some time develop the story structure in your head. A structure I will explain in a minute, and practice telling the story in your head until you have it down. Set up pattern, foreshadowing, the character, twist. Okay, it's all about like old fashioned. Smile, ask questions, avoid complaining, and set topics, and have some entertaining stories ready to go. It's all you need to be in the top 10% of the all conversationist. Overcome shyness. Swimming isn't entirely natural to humans. We need to learn it. Luckily, we humans learn to swim fairly easily with a little practice. Some of us have a more natural shyness than others, but as with swimming, you can learn to overcome shyness with a little practice, and it's worth an effort. Otherwise, you will find yourself socially drowning at every gathering or public talk. I credited one of my college friends with teaching me the secret of overcoming shyness by imagining you are acting instead of interacting. Okay. And by that I mean literally acting. That makes some sense because the shyness is caused by internal feeling that you are now worthy to be in a conversation. Acting like someone else gets you out of that way of thinking. The single best tip for avoiding shyness involves harnessing the power of acting interested in other people. You don't want to cross into noisiness, but everyone appreciates it when you show interest. Okay. Parallel position. I feel some kind of so much different because like when I read this book like about 2 years ago, it was fascinating, but it is not at all. The only reasonable goal in life is maximizing a total life experience of something called happiness. That might sound selfish, but it's not. A normal person needs to treat others well in order to enjoy life. For the sake of argument, let's assume you are normal-ish. If you want to boost your happiness, it helps you understand what happiness is and how it works. You might think the science of happiness is fairly obvious, but it's not. Happiness, like gardening, only seems simple. Let's just start by defining happiness and agreeing on what causes it. My definition of happiness is that it's a feeling you get when your body chemistry is producing pleasant sensation in your mind. That is like in hormones, right? And that definition is compatible with the science of happiness. It's tempting to imagine happiness is a state of mind caused by whatever is happening in your life. By that way of thinking, we are largely victims of a cruel world that sometimes rewards our good work and sometimes punishes us for no reason. That's a helpless world view, and it can blind to your simple system for being happier. Science has done a good job in recent years of demonstrating that happiness isn't dependent on your circumstances as you might think. And you know from own experience that some people seem to be happy no matter what is going in their lives, while others can find happiness no matter how many things are going right. We are all born with a limited range of happiness, and the circumstances of life can only jiggle us around within the range. The good news is that anyone who has experienced happiness probably has the capacity to spend more time at the top of his or her personal range and less time near the bottom. In my case, my baseline is an difference between happy and unhappy, so staying near the top of my narrow range makes all difference. To do that, I treat myself like the moist robot. I am the manipulate my body chemistry as I need. I also try to improve my situation and circumstances wherever I can, but I see that 20% of the solution, the big part, the 80% of the happiness is nothing but the chemistry experiment, and it's hugely helpful to think of it in that way. You can always quickly fix whenever it's wrong in your environment, and you can prevent negative thoughts from drifting into your head. But you can easily control your body chemistry through lifestyle, and that in turn will cause your thoughts to turn positive while making the bumps in your path feel less important. Let's get to the machines of manipulating your body chemistry. Obviously, your doctor can give you a pill to change your mood. An antidepressants in a big business, and you can change your chemistry by drinking alcohol or doing recreational drugs. The problem with each of those methods is that it comes with a risk and side effect you rather avoid. I advocate a more natural approach. For starters, the single biggest trick of manipulating your happiness chemistry is being able to do what you want when you want. Okay, how long I want, right? And I'm contrasting that with a more common situation in which you might be able to do all the things you want, but you can't often do them when you want. The timing of things can be more important than the intrinsic value of things. You need to control the order and the timing of things to be happy. It's important to look at happiness in terms of the timing, because timing is easier to control than resources. It's hard to become rich enough to buy your own private island, but relatively speaking, it's easy to find a job with flexible hours. A person with flexible schedule and the average resources will be happier than a rich person who has everything except a flexible schedule. Step 1 in your search for happiness is to continue to work and toward having control of your schedule. Those parents might have an older stuff they could ask for, but no flexibility to enjoy what they want when they want. By any definition, what I'm doing is work, but because I can control the timing of it, it's on a particular day, it doesn't feel like work. I've transformed the work into pleasure simply by having control over when I do it. In your personal life and in your career, consider schedule flexibility when making any big decision. Realistically, okay? 주도성 있게 하는 거. Autonomy, right? Just remember to keep your eye out of ways, maximizing your schedule freedom in the long term. It's just something you want to work toward. That brings me to the next important mechanism for happiness. Happiness has more to do with where you heading than where you are. When tend to feel happy when things are moving in the right direction, and unhappy when things are trending bad. Okay, the direction and nature of happiness is one reason it's a good idea to have a sport or hobby that leaves you plenty of room to improve every year. Slow and steady improvement. Slow and steady improvement. Wow, slow and steady improvement. Slow and steady improvement in anything makes you feel that you are on the right track. The feeling of progress stimulates your body to create the chemicals that make you feel happy. When you choose a career, consider whether it will lead to a lifetime and ever-improved performance. As a cartoonist, my drawing skills have slowly improved over most of my career, and that is a source of happiness for me. If you are lucky enough to have career options, you only one of them for a positive continual improvement, yes, of course. Choose that one. All else and being equal. The next element of happiness is you need to master imagination. I wrote about this in the context of raising your energy, which is closely relative to happiness, but it bears repeating in this chapter. Pessimism is often a failure of imagination. If you can imagine the future being brighter, it lifts your energy and gooses the chemistry in your body that produces a sensation of happiness. If you can't even imagine improve the future, you want to be happy no matter how well your life is going right. I find it useful to daydream that the future will be better than the today by far. I like to imagine a future that is spectacular and breathtaking. The daydreams need not to be accurate in terms of predicting the future. Simply imagining a better future hacks your brain chemistry and provides you with a sensation of happiness today. Being happy raises your energy level and makes it easier to pursue the steps toward the real world happiness. This is another case in which your imagination can influence the real world. Yes, that's true. Right. Don't let reality control your imagination. Let your imagination be the user interface to steer your reality. The next important thing to remember about happiness is that it's not mystery of the mind and it's not magic. Happiness is a natural state of most people whenever they feel healthy, have a flexible schedule, feel healthy and flexible schedule and expect the future to be good. I exercise, I had a healthy reward snack, and I'm totally happy even though I'm working at the writing and tweaking the chapter. Taking care of my body always influences my happiness more than whatever task I involved in. That's an important point because normally when you feel unhappy, you blame your mood or whatever your environment is serving up to you. It's easy to blame your environment because you can interpret almost everything as bad news in a potential bad news. Okay, I'm here to tell you the primary culprit in your bad mood isn't deficit is one of the big five: flexible schedule, imagination, sleep, diet, and exercise, of course. Okay, I've explained a number of people my observation about how exercise, diet, and sleep influence mood. The usual reaction is blank expression followed by change of topic. No one wants to believe that the formula of happiness is as simple as daydreaming, controlling your schedule, napping, eating right, and being active every day. Based on a lifetime of observation, my best estimate is that 80% of your mood is based on how your body feels, and only 20% is based on your genes and your circumstances, particularly your health. Ask yourself the question: at times, when you exercise earlier in the day, eat well, hydrated, and have enough sleep, what percentage of those times did you have to find yourself in a good mood? I bet you don't know the answer to the question because it's not the sort of thing you pay attention to. No, I've been paying attention to it. But now I've been put the idea in your head, you will automatically find yourself notice the link between a daily body maintenance and your not so mysterious and happiness. I predict you will observe that your good moods are highly correlated with exercise, diet, and sleep. Yes, definitely. Exercise has two very different benefits that are hard to untangle. The exercise itself releases natural pain relief substances endorphin, and that gives you a direct feeling of well-being. But exercise is also meant as escape from whatever was stressing before you lace in your athletic shoes. That's why I recommend formal exercises and occupy your mind at the same time as your muscles. Exercising also helps you sleep better, so that's a double benefit. Of the big five factors in happiness, flexible schedule, imagination, diet, exercise, and sleep, my pick fourth for the most important is exercise. If exercise sounds like a lot of work, wait for my chapter on the easiest way to become active. If the list of five elements for happiness seems incomplete, that's intentional. I know you might also want a sex and a soulmate, fame, recognition, a feeling of importance, career success, and lots more. My condition is that your five prolonged pursuit of happiness will act as a magnet for other components of happiness you need. When you're fit, happy, and full of energy, people are far more likely to have sex with you, be your friend, and hire you sometimes all in the same day. But a smart approach is to take care of yourself first, and the use of success is leverage to get everything else you need. After some self-reflection, I realized that I was feeling adrift. I no longer had a primary purpose in life because I had already achieved it. It was an eerie feeling, unreal and unsettling. I had no kids at the time, so I had no reason to achieve anything more. I dipped to and below the baseline happiness and it wasn't rebounding. The way I climbed out of my funk was my realizing that my newly acquired resources can help me change the world in some small but positive ways. 100% successful in giving me a meaningful purpose, which allowed my optimism and the energy to return. Unhappiness is that is caused by too much success in a high-class problem. That's the soul of unhappiness people work in all their lives to get. If you find yourself there, and I hope you do, I'll find your attention naturally turning upward. You will seek happiness through service to others. I promise it will feel wonderful. Yes. Routine, finally. People become unhappy if they have too many options in life. The people with the options it is choosing any path can live in a flat within self-doubt. You quite rationally think that one of the paths not chosen in heaven and worked out better. They can. It at you. That's why I find great comfort in routine. I never waste my brain cell in the morning trying to figure out what to do when. Compare that with some people you know who spend 2 hours in planning and deciding for every task that takes 1 hour to complete. I'm happier than those people. Recapping the happiness in a formula: eat right, exercise, get enough sleep, imagine an incredible future, work to a flexible schedule, do things you can steadily improve at, help others, reduce daily disease routine. If you do those 8 things, you rest in what you need to stimulate the chemistry of happiness in your brain. It will be a lot easier to find. 맞아요, that's true. Definitely, absolutely. I experienced it. In fact, the other components of happiness that you seek, such as a career, opportunities, love, and friends, might find their way to you if you make yourself an attractive target.